Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Trackman44 here. Hey, you know what we're going to be looking at this afternoon is a really pretty cool old piece. This is from the Henry and Wright Manufacturing Company in Hartford, Connecticut. It was, I think, patented in 1904, 1905, and 1911, etc., etc. So I have no idea exactly what year this is, but I'm sure it's probably in the vicinity of 100-year-old, possibly a little bit more. This is actually a drill press. The sudden accumulation of that brand new set of Morse 1, Morse 2, and Morse 3 taper bits that I got given to me from my buddy from helping him work on his old car engine last week. And so I thought, well, no time like the present to get this thing out. Like I said, this is a really old one. It's really got some unique things about it. Take a look up here. First off, if you look up here, it's going to be a flat belt drive. You can see how this flat belt is going to come off of the drive unit, come up here through this series of pulleys, and rotate the arbor and everything. Okay, now one of the cool things in messing around with this that I discovered that you can reverse the rotation if you happen to have a motor that turns the wrong direction or whatever. You can literally rethread these through the opposite pulleys, and that changes the rotation or changes the direction of the actual arbor. So that's really pretty cool. Real heavy machine. It's suffered some abuse, a lot of abuse before I got it. Some of the abuse, if you take a look right here, it's got a kind of a poorly nickel rod repair on this cast iron frame. This whole end was dropped and knocked right off the end of it. But you know, I'm sure it's going to be accurate enough for what I'm going to do out here. Remember, we talked about our flat belt being up here. If you take a look at this worm drive right here, or watch these pulleys when I turn this crank, see how that extends it out to increase the belt tension or decrease belt tension this way here. That's really pretty cool. And you can see there's two different size drive flat pulleys up here at the top. I'm on the low speed right now. If you put it up here, it's going to turn faster. So when you put that belt on the upper one and you make your adjustment here, okay, things aren't quite in alignment. So watch this here. We have a lever that you can take and elevate the entire assembly, not even messing with the belt tension, to drive it on the smaller upper gear, or back down when you go back to the other speed or the lower speed here, and if necessary, make your belt tension adjustment like that. Got a massive work table. I didn't measure it, but this has got to be 12 by 12 with a liquid catching trough around the perimeter, you know, for your coolant. And down here, if you take a look, this has actually got an Acme threaded knee. You can see how it's adjusting the height. And it's got an actual set of adjusting ways over here to where you can actually keep this all tight and snug to where it doesn't get any wobble and everything in it as you get worn over the period of time that you're using it. Very substantial. Not unlike what's on milling machines on a smaller scale. If you take a look at this guy right here, there's a nut right in here that holds this into this track. Right now it's extended all the way down to give you the shortest throw possible to get to your work. But if you have a larger piece of work, you've got your knee all the way to the bottom and there still isn't enough room, you can loosen this and you can actually pull this all the way up to the very top right here, gaining another 7 or 8 inches of height so that you can work on material that's super big or large or thick. Now, you and I both know a machine this old probably set in a plant or a manufacturing facility, and it operated off of a flat belt drive with a steam engine or something driving a line shaft overhead, and they would drop a flat belt down in order to cause this thing to run. You know, a lot of times guys can be creative over the years, and one of the owners prior to me, and I strongly suspect it was my much older brother, went ahead and mounted a 4-speed transmission. 4-speed, I believe it's a Chevrolet truck transmission here, on a very nice heavy 5x6 or so set of angle irons and everything. And they actually come up with this gearing right here that will actually chain drive the input shaft to this guy here that's going to drive the flat belt, given the ultimate 4-speed selection off of the transmission to increase or decrease the speed of your arbor. So now, in order to drive this transmission, you got to come up with a pulley or a motor of sorts. And this big heavy plate has been put on here. I was digging around in my material and came up with a 2 horsepower, 110 volt, 240 volt motor. Got it wired for 110. And so I went ahead and mounted some unistrut on here. Unistrut, for those of you that don't work construction, unistrut is this universal strut material that has oblong holes 2 inches on center, and they come in 10 and 20 foot lengths. You cut whatever length you need to mount whatever it is you're working on, either to a wall, to a ceiling, or to a deck, in order to mount machinery to work on or to adjust. So I just cut 2 8-inch pieces and bolted them to the bottom of the motor pedestal, and I'm in the process of welding that in place right here. And then I'll get this adjusted just right to where that shiv will line up with this shiv right here. So that's where I'm at right now. We're getting ready to weld these unit struts into place. I was able to come up with a B45 belt that's going to go ahead and drive this. So the motor is attached down here. It's a 2 horsepower, 110 volts is what I got it wired for, but it's 110 or 240 volt capacitor start 2 horsepower motor, 1725 RPM. So that's going to provide input right here. So when we start this in neutral and everything's warm, of course everything's going to roll around in there, but the oil and everything is cold because it's cold in my shop right now. So this is going to rotate even though this is in neutral position. But we'll start it up. Now if we had the flat belt completed right here, the arbor would be rotating. But at any rate, normally just put it in first gear and you'll see the RPM that it's going to be turning it. You can go ahead and shift it into second gear without shutting it off. But going to the higher outputs, you do have to turn it off to get it into third gear, as well as fourth gear, and obviously reverse. Now what I got to do is piece together a belt. I don't have any 1-inch leather to make a 1-inch leather flat belt, so I'm going to use automotive serpentine belting. Now hopefully I'll be able to make that serpentine belt work with just one set of belt lacings in it. All you old farmers out there and everybody who worked on farm knows what these guys are. These are your flat belt lacing kits. You can get these things even wider than this, but typically for farm equipment, buy them 12 inches and then cut off whatever lengths you need. This is a more modern tool right here, and this is made for an industrial belt. If you notice, it's got a real fine tooth in here. That's made for a tighter radius going around smaller pulleys and a much smoother operation than what farm machinery is. That's what this all is here. This is the spacing for farm belting, like on the buzz saws and all that kind of stuff. And on my flat belt drive, I have on some machinery that's in the other workshop. But that's what we're going to have to go with on this guy right here. This here is an old antique tool. These here are the much more modern. You just chuck these up in a 4-inch or 6-inch bench vise, and you line everything up, and you just literally squeeze them down with the workings of the vise. There you go. You would just put them in your vise right there and set everything in place. Set this in place perfectly square and then tighten up your vise. So here I've got my lacing actually inserted in here perfectly in alignment like we need. And here's our pin. This pin right here actually locks everything in place. You slide that right in. There's a hole on the other side. And this fits in a recess over here. Locks it all into place. Set it in the tool. Right here. And now we're ready to slide that belt in right here. Now you have to make sure this is cut perfectly square. When you pull this, you hear the ratcheting, and you see these cogs right here. This ratchet is actually pulling on those cogs and putting this thing down, putting pressure on it right here in front of me. See the jaws coming together right in front of my fingers here? Pull that up, pull your pin, slide this back, and open the jaws and pull this out. There's 1/2 of the joint. Now we have to duplicate that on the other end, and hopefully the length is going to come out the way I measured. Totally messed this one up. So see, no matter how careful you are, you can see how easy it is to mess up. So I've got to pry each one of those individuals off of there and make a second pass on it. That's the worst one I think I've ever done. Let's hope for a little better luck. Oh yeah, that's what we wanted right there. Look how perfectly those went into those slots on the serpentine belt. There's our joint right there. All we need is a little bit of catgut or maybe a piece of this material right here that I've used in the past, and we'll be good to go. Okay, you can see the serpentine belt rounded around the top and come down. I put the splice in it with the belt lacing, and we're ready to fire this thing up. Who's with me? Who wants to see if it's going to work or not? I got it in first gear, low speed on the low RPM pulley, so it's going to be going very, very, very slow. There she goes. Let's shift it into second gear. We can do that with it running. There's second gear. Shuttle off to put it into third. Definitely see a noticeable difference. Shuttle off to put it into fourth. Oh, looks like my belt is slipping a little bit. Okay, so in getting the belt tension correct and everything adjusted, I went ahead and drilled several 21 30-second holes just because that happened to be the first bit I pulled out. But I'm going to make it a little bit easier on the machine and drill a pilot hole first. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Morse taper or the MT1, MT2 adapter, it merely slips right inside just like that right there. And this flat spot goes right in line with the hole, and there it is. What I like to do, because sometimes until you get it pressed in there a little bit, it might want to fall out when you start up, the little shake of the starting of the drill. I just go ahead and just kind of set it in place there just a little bit like that. Then you can go ahead and start it up and not have to worry about it. So we're going to go ahead and drill just a small pilot hole. Removal's exactly the same as the other ones. That comes out, then you can do exactly the same thing again. Separated and ready to go. Now we just go ahead and take the larger 21 30-second bit and stick that up in there. And of course you want to have that all clamped down and everything. This isn't that critical, so I'm not too concerned about it. But there's your hole, just that quick. And actually does a pretty good job, even though there is some run out on the spindle. And I believe that run out, I think I indicated before, was as a result of this having been dropped and then re-welded back in position. I think there's just a little bit of something not quite right here. But it doesn't matter for the things that I do. Well guys, I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this this little exercise in getting this old 100-and-some-year-old drill press back in service. It's been laying dormant way too long. It needs to be put back to work. And the brand new set of Morse 1, 2, and 3 taper bits that I got from my buddy just a week or so ago kind of put me in the mindset to get this guy going again. So that having been said, this is TrackMan 44, and I'm out of here, guys.